I just wanted to welcome everybody. I'm Carol Sutkus. I'm the current president of OWLA. And welcome to our latest installment of our public forum series. Tonight we will hear about growing healthy soil and nutritious food. I'd like to introduce our guest today. I know Erin is on. I don't know if Peter is on. Erin.
He's
Erin.
taking care of our son right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
so our guest today then would be Erin Konuma of Silver Tree Forest Farm in the Hamlet of Owasco. Tonight we're going to hear about market gardening, permaculture, and regenerative agriculture. And she's here to tell us how they implement these practices at the farm. I'm going to ask you to hold your questions until the end of her presentation, and at that point we'll have a question and answer session. And we will have plenty of time for that. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Erin unless someone has an immediate question about how this works. I don't see any hands up. So Erin, I believe we're ready to go.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Well, thank you so much for having us this evening, and we're really grateful to OWLA. OWLA has been a part of our lives for a long time. My husband Peter, whom I own and run the farm with, he was good friends with Bob Brower, and Bob was a really good mentor to Peter. So we were really had a special time with him, and yeah. So I also am good friends with Linda Vitale, and through her have heard so much about Aula's work, and I hope that today I can touch on how the kind of farming that we do is a replicable model for our area, and specifically for farming in really intensive and diversified ways that set up ecological systems that serve our watershed and serve the community that surrounds here, and including the all of the creatures that live here, not just the humans. So yeah, today I'll first start by talking a little bit about who we are. So Silver Tree Forest Farm, we're located in the Hamlet of Owasco, and we've been farming this location right near the little church and the store for since 2016. Um, this is a quick, just numbers overview of our operation. We've been in operation for 9 years, and with the addition of this site that you just saw there, that's our original farm site, which I'll talk about today. That's a 3-acre site, and we recently last year purchased a house in another 3 acres. So we're stewarding 6 acres on 2 sites that are just a couple minutes apart from one another. We do 2/3 of an acre in mixed vegetable production and cut flowers. And we also have a perennial plant nursery. So especially that was a touch point for us with Bob was talking about, and with OWLA potentially, was talking about how farmers can be planting riparian areas and other areas in open acreage to plant perennial trees that can help filter and slow down water in the landscape. So I'm going to be talking about that, but we do grow a number of perennial shrubs and trees and herbaceous plants with ecological function in mind. We are supporting a 20-member veggie CSA this year for the first time from May to October. And we've for many years been doing a flower bouquet CSA, and this year we'll be having 30 members in that program. We have one roadside stand up by the road on Route 38A, which is open all through the season. And Pete and I are the owner operators, and Toy and Greta are Toy on your staff, are 2 full-time staff members during the season, March to October. So kind of taking a step back and zooming out, I always like to talk about our purpose for why we farm. And this is sort of at our core statement is nourishing life is our passion. So in all aspects of what we do at the farm, whether it's, coming up with a fertility plan or mulching or deciding what plants we're going to be growing and, um, you know, hosting beneficial insects on the flowers that we grow, we're always driving towards creating conditions that are conducive to life. And our farm, we really strive to make it a place that is just abundant and bursting with life. And also, as a result, it's just naturally a very beautiful place, a place that you would want to hang out at and be in and be drawn to. So this is our mission: is we regenerate soil, landscape, and ecological systems through diverse and profitable farm enterprises that benefit all beings. And that last bit there is I was raised Buddhist and do a lot of Zen meditation. And as we practice Buddhism, our whole practice is for all beings. And I think that that really goes hand in hand with an ecological vision or view on the world. Sort of the motivation for what we do is to benefit all. And this is Peter there on the right and myself on the left, and that's Arturius, our 3-year-old boy in the middle. And so, as a farm, going forward into the future, we have 3 main areas of focus driving what we do. The first is we strive to grow nutrient dense food. And today I'm going to talk about what I believe that means and the importance of nutrition and increasing nutrient density in the food that we grow and eat. The second area that we focus on is, like I said, creating a farm that's really exciting to be at, that has a lot of diverse stuff going on, so that people from a lot of backgrounds and ages can access the farm, come to the farm, enjoy and look and see food, taste, smell, touch everything that's going on, and learn about plants. And the whole ecosystem itself through an experiential time at the farm. A lot of farms today can be like closed off, sort of like biohazard zones, and they're on such a large scale and have such industrial processes going on, and the use of chemicals too. They're not safe places for people to actually be anymore. And so we want to really create the opposite of that. And so the third pillar of how we focus our work is that we want to support other growers. Into the future, we would like to have access to a little bit more acreage so that we could support the development of new and beginning farmers, to have sort of an incubator farm space here in the Auburn area, and help guide apprentice farmers to have access to small plots like quarter, half an acre, so that they can experiment with and get going. And today I'm going to talk about land access a little bit. And I want to acknowledge in talking about, I don't love the word owner uh, of land. I really like the word steward. And I also want to acknowledge that, we're here right on the border between the Haudenosaunee and the Goyagahono nations, and that this land those are the original inhabitants of the land that we farm. So this is a vision that we laid out a couple of years ago when we were looking for land. Land access is a really huge obstacle for a lot of people to start up a farm or begin farming, especially in our area. Almost all of the agricultural open land between the lakes here is held by larger farms, and often it's sold from farmer to farmer. We certainly support the work of the Finger Lakes Land Trust to help preserve and conserve some of these lands, for our watersheds and for the health of the larger ecosystem in the Finger Lakes. And I know that OWLA does work with a lot of farmers. I do believe that there is a transition afoot. I'm going to talk a little bit about the word regenerative agriculture in this presentation, but I do think some larger farmers are beginning to see that we need to think like a forest and act like a watershed. And so we were looking at a piece of land here that you could see. This was just sort of like a dream bubble map. If we had 100 acres, what would we do with it? And we right now have just the 6, and we really only produce on 1 to 2 of those acres as far as like making products that people eat and consume. This plan here would include like a you pick berry in addition to the vegetables, a you pick fruit orchard. We can coppice Christmas trees and keep those plant stocks alive over time. Peter and I are very interested in what's called agroforestry, which is growing trees, perennial tree crops on a larger broadacre landscape, and harvesting them and really growing like a forest that can be harvested for food, which is what indigenous cultures all over the world have done for millennia and continue to do. We can do that here. It is what this landscape was before colonial settling. This was a chestnut sort of savanna of chestnut trees and other trees, all used and managed by the indigenous people that lived here before. So, we would like to see some of this broader acreage converted to those agroforestry systems, which are actually the most productive agricultural systems in the world if you look at the volume of food that can be produced per acre. Um, and then, of course, these systems are really beneficial to our watershed. What they're doing is slowing water down, spreading it out through the landscape, and storing that water in our soils higher up on the landscape, instead of shunting it off through culverts and pipes and drainage tile into our tributaries. So that's really, kind of it's our motivation for farming. We would love someday to have access to a large area like this, but this is our vision for the future. And we really think that this kind of like larger 100-acre farm with all of these various enterprises going on, this could be replicated, 100 times over, 50 times over, just in Skaneateles and Auburn. There's so much potential here for this type of farming to actually bring products and foods and medicines to the people that live here. So very, very briefly, I'm going to talk about the principles and sort of guiding values that we have studied at length and continue to reference when we make decisions in our farm and our planning process. So first off, if I was in a room, I would say, how many people have heard of permaculture before? So I would just say that. I can't see your hands at the moment, but you could raise your hand. Maybe Toy could take a tally if you've heard of permaculture. It's a movement that was started in the early 80s by 2 Australian biologists. And basically, they took sort of the guiding principles of ecological thinking and indigenous wisdom and developed these 12 principles of how nature actually works, and using those principles to guide our design process in life. You can use these principles to design anything. It doesn't have to be an agricultural system. Sometimes these principles are used to design social systems or networks of people. So like one example I can point to in these, and I do like an hour-long talk on this, so I'm not going to spend much on this slide, but for example, nature, the worm down there in the bottom corner, produce no waste is one of these principles. So we're going to design a farm that produces no waste. That would be our goal, is to have a zero waste farm. And we see that as a principle because, for example, a forest, it doesn't have like a dumpster on the side of the forest where the forest dumps its waste. That system itself doesn't actually create waste. And as we start to look at human created waste in our systems that we've developed, we can see that waste streams are really just food for something else. When we get excess food from a restaurant, for example, that doesn't have to go into our landfill and cause methane issues. We can use those waste streams and turn them into food if we have a good design. So that's just one example here. I definitely invite everyone to look at these. These are David Holmgren's principles, permaculture principles, and you can, I think, find them right away if you Google permaculture principles. Holmgren, Holmgren. And this is, I've taught a 72-hour course in permaculture design. That's an adult course, like over 2 weeks or spread out over a few months. That's a wonderful course. I highly recommend that if you're interested in ecological design. I also wanted to point out that we practice regenerative agriculture. I think before I mentioned that this is kind of a hot term right now, and you know, many decades ago, the word sustainability came about, and everybody sort of grabbed onto it. And often these things can be sort of greenwashed and used in not the best ways. But these are the tenets of regenerative agriculture: is that we minimize soil disturbance. So at our farm, we practice no-till farming. We don't till the grow beds that we produce on annually. Um, this is really important because we now know so much more about soil life, and that soil is teeming with all kinds of microbes and beneficial fungi and bacteria, and that we have this incredible network, often in a healthy soil, held together by mycorrhizal fungi. And when we till, we have a short-term benefit of a lot of oxygen infusing into that system and a lot of die off of those microbes. And so we get a big burst of nitrogen, but that is not sustainable, and it can cause a hard pan underneath where you've tilled. And that's the situation for most of the acreage that's conventionally used in this country and grown on. So diversity is a huge part of regenerative agriculture. Often regenerative systems incorporate livestock. Those agroforestry systems that I mentioned earlier can have what's called silvopasture systems run into and around and through them. So you can have lines of trees, nut and fruit trees, berry bushes, and then you can run cows and chickens in a big lane in between those two rows of trees. You can also do conventional tillage and row crops in between agroforestry rows. So that rotational grazing, running animals through systems, we're putting the fertility right where it needs to be. And those animals are expert at incorporating that into the landscape and creating maximum fertility and feeding the soil life as they pass through. And then polycultures, you could see down here, that just means growing 2 or more crops in the same space. So that can be really beneficial. We certainly do that at our farm, and we find that we have really, really reduced insect pressure and disease pressure because, next to the kale is beans, and then tomatoes, and then we have, some other crop in some other family. And so those insects that are attacking one type of crop, they don't have far to go to like destroy and devastate that one species in a huge field. And then lastly, keeping it organic, not using any pesticides or fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers or fungicides, herbicides. Um, we're finding now, even on a scale of many thousands of acres, that farmers are able to implement regenerative agriculture in these larger systems and keep it organic and in a no-till system, often using cover crops to build fertility. And the more that we are building soil life, the healthier our plants are. So the soil life is sort of like the gut microbiome for plants. And that is helping feed plants all of the minerals and nutrients they need to stay healthy. And when plants are really healthy, not just pumped up on synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, they actually get really sweet and delicious. And they get that sweetness is actually not very appealing to a lot of the predatory insects, the insects that cause damage to our crops. And so as we see that measured scientifically, there are a lot of large scale growers that are having incredible results without any chemical applications. And I just want to mention organic. We are currently not certified organic. We have felt for many years that the paperwork is sort of unwieldy and we're very, very small and slowly growing. So, but at this point, we are seriously considering certification, if only for the fact that there are a lot of forces sort of working to devalue the USDA organic certification standards, namely hydroponic growing, which is not a soil-based system. So we are investigating this year whether we will certify organic just to sort of stand behind those practices. And the last thing I want to mention as far as practices goes is holistic management. And I invite all of you to check out Alan Savory. He is a really incredible mind. He developed this system of holistic management mostly for ranchers and folks who work with grazing livestock. But it's something that helps you set goals and understand your quality of life and the context you find yourself within. And it's a tool that you can use whether you're farming or not. So quickly, I'm going to go through some of the practices that we have to grow and how we feed soil. Um, we do brew compost teas, which is, you could see on the left there, putting compost into a 5-gallon bucket of water. You have sort of a cheesecloth or cloth that you can brew that in. And it is an aerobic brew where you put a small aerator in the bottom and it agitates and the microbes get into the water, and then you can spray that on your soils, you can spray it under mulch, you can spray it on your like a foliar spray, and that's just like infusing this wonderful population of beneficial microorganisms that will themselves uh, reproduce and create more life in the soil. We also brew those effective microorganisms. They're called EM, and you can buy that online and brew it yourself, or just buy it and apply it to your plants in your garden. Just again, infusing with the beneficial microbes. Often it's the lactobacillus, the same stuff that we take when we take probiotics and want to reset our system after taking antibiotics. Um, and then many of you might be familiar with this practice, but we very much practice sheet mulching. And some people call it lasagna gardening, where you layer many layers of organic material and then you plant into that, and that whole thing is composting in place. And this can keep soil moisture in, and it can keep weeds down, and it gives you a really beautiful bed to plant into. And then lastly, Pete has on the right-hand side there a chunk of mulch into which we have inoculated wine cap mushroom spawn. And we grow this spawn. Pete's really interested. We have a small mushroom lab at our house. And he grows this mushroom spawn out, the mycelium, which is the white part you see under leaves if you're in the forest, that mycelial network. He grows that out onto a sawdust block. And then we sell those bags and you can sprinkle them in your garden. And those mushrooms can help clean up on the like harmful bacteria like E. coli in your garden, and they help build soil. And then they also pop up and they have delicious wine-colored mushrooms that you can eat. And that those flushes can happen this spring and the fall. So while we're growing these systems, we like to think of bacterial soils as sort of the agitated soils that we can till. So in annual agriculture, we're tilling every year. We're kind of causing a big tornado in the soil and breaking up a lot of those networks. And so the fungal populations in those soils can decrease and bacteria can increase. And it's not necessarily the healthiest mix for a lot of plants to have a highly bacteria rich environment. So using different mycorrhizal fungi, we like to grow in a more fungal environment. And this mimics the forest floor. So I'm going to kind of take you through that a little bit here. We like to think farm like a forest. So at our farm, all of our grow beds are surrounded by food forests, and we have fruit trees and ground cover, shrubs that are all berry bushes, herbaceous layers, and then root crops. These are sort of the 7 layers of a food forest. And this system utilizes vertical space and all sorts of nooks and crannies to pack in the most productivity to the smallest space. Food forests, forest gardens, and agroforestry are sort of interchangeable terms. I wanted to bring this to OWLA because this is an image from the Water Institute in Occidental, California. Um, I studied permaculture there, and they have a wonderful nonprofit that does watershed advocacy for a lot of the salmon watersheds in California. And they did this image, and I just think this is such a cool image of showing the hydrologic cycle and the different ways that we can use swales and gray water and rain gardens and sort of crafting our farm and home landscapes to capture water and slow it down, so that what makes it to our tributaries and our streams is clean. And that's something we're very committed to and we're very interested in, is planting these agroforestry systems and willow coppice systems in a way along our watershed so that every drop that gets into that watershed is clean before it gets in the stream. Briefly, I'm going to talk about nutrient dense food. So nutrient dense is a term that means the ratio of how many minerals and vitamins are in a given, um, quantity or caloric load of food. So, how much nutrition are you getting out of this vegetable? And a couple of points on this: through our modern agricultural practices, we've lost a lot of nutrition, and in the soil. And the soil being full of minerals and nutrients and soil life is what makes our food more nutrient dense. When we grow food in compacted soils that have been leached and hit with a lot of chemicals, we're ending up with apples and lettuce and whatever you have produce wise that has fewer nutrients in it. And there have been many studies on this. One said that today's produce is 38% lower in vitamins and minerals than it was during World War II. So we know that this is part of the factor, a part of the onslaught that we have in our modern, some of our modern health crises. So we strive. This is our farm when we set out these grow beds in 2021. We really strive to build soil for that health. You could see there's our edible forest garden. We have some market gardens growing the vegetables. We have an edible plant nursery in the middle in the red, and bees and chickens for eggs, and a greenhouse. We did sheet mulching. This is sheet mulching in action. We took sheets of cardboard, a couple thick, and overlapped them, covering perennial grasses. And then we uh, laid out our beds with stakes and twine and bought in compost. It's very, very difficult to find truly rich, healthy compost in bulk in this area and in many areas. The compost we bought in turned out to be a little bit too baked. It was too hotly composted, so we had to add a lot of more life and fertility after this. But this was a great way to start out from scratch in a grassy area. So we put 6 inches of compost down, and in between those composted beds, these are no-till deep compost mulch beds. We put rows of wood chips. And we'll be using this year to set up more beds some ramial wood chips, which are wood chips that are taken from the ends of branches in the early spring when there's lots of hormonal action, lots of growth. And those wood chips are really, really great for feeding our beds. Plus, it makes for a really clean, dry, and lovely farming environment to produce in. And that was our vegetable vegetables this first spring in those beds at the old farm. And these are some of the vegetables that we grow. We grow over 30 different types of vegetables, and it might be more than that this year. Toy might know. um, but we are really striving to provide a diverse diet and to provide local produce here in Auburn and Skaneateles. This is our farm stand up at the road on 38A. Um, and it's an honor system, and we just love to have diverse stuff up there. We have flowers up there as well. Here's some of our greens. And we specialize in heirloom tomatoes, and we do heirloom rainbow mixed tomatoes and rainbow mixed cherries. And I have to say that the different varieties of vegetables, the things that you can't buy at the grocery store, the flavor profiles on these vegetables grown in great soil, it's like nothing you've ever tasted. The quality and the uh, quantity of sugars, which is called like the bricks in a leaf, which you can measure now. It's really really high on this type of farming, and the produce coming out of this farming system. We grow ginger and turmeric as well in our greenhouse, and we offer veggie boxes like this weekly for purchase and delivery. You could pick them up for free at our farm, or we could deliver to homes in Skaneateles and Auburn. And I just wanted to quick mention, if you are interested, tomorrow, actually Valentine's Day, is the last day we're offering a 5% discount on our veggie box CSA. And I think we still have 12 slots open for 2025. It's for 20 weeks of, we have a couple sizes of veggie box. So you would get a veggie box each week from May through September. And you just get our freshest, most abundant harvest of the week. And we usually get a good diversity of things in there, including onions and garlic and beans and squash and greens for your salad and herbs. So that's a big part of what we do at our farm. We also do this cut flower bouquet program, and that's where you get like a flower bouquet in a mason jar each week for 8 weeks in the height of the season. And yeah, this is something we've been doing since 2016, and we feel, while we're not like florists, we make these really beautiful farm bouquets. Each week they're different, and it's quite amazing to see the different things that arise and how the bouquets shift through the weeks of the summer. And also the pollinators at our farm are just off the hook, and it's so beneficial to have, every fifth row in our veggie beds, every fifth, sixth row is a bed of flowers. And that is just the ecology and the hummingbirds and all the things that we see at our farm is just quite incredible. And that a lot of that is due to the presence of flowers there. We grow over 3,000, 4,000 veggie seedlings each year. We grow organically, so if you are a gardener and you want to fill your garden up with, your veggies, we specialize in tomatoes and peppers, and then have a whole array of other vegetables. So you can get your veggie seedlings from us, and we have a big plant sale in May. This is our greenhouse, probably in like late April, getting all the seedlings potted up and growing on. And there's more of our greenhouse from the inside. And part of what we do is help folks, low-income folks in Auburn, through the Booker T. Washington Community Center. These are some girls that we brought to the Permaculture Park in Auburn from Booker T. Washington. Is we donate 40 seedling packs to families of children who go to Booker T. Washington for after-school programming. And each of the seedling packs that we donate has seedlings enough for 2 4x8 vegetable beds. And this has been a really popular program. I think we're in our 6th year of it. If you'd like to donate to this program, you can do so on our website. But we feel like this is a great way to make those vegetables accessible to folks who can put them in pots in their backyard and put them in the ground and have some fresh vegetables going during the time the kids are off from school. So that's been really popular and fun. I'm just going to briefly go through in the last few minutes. We also have an edible plant nursery. Peter, my husband, is really into propagating plants. And so we grow a whole array of trees and berry bushes. These four are sort of the ones that we love the most. They're all shrubs. The top left there is an elderberry plant. We grow these elderberry plants for sale, but we also harvest the elderberries and make an elderberry tincture for the flu season. And then top right there is the vitamin C of the north. That's sea berry, or it's comes. It's sort of like a Siberian plant, and that sea berry is packed with vitamin C, and it has vitamin E in the seed on the inside, so it's very good for your skin. But you can juice these berries, and it's like drinking Sunny Delight, but all natural. And it is amazing in smoothies. Really cool plant. This has a lot of potential. We're going to grow about 90 of these plants at our new farm location to scale up production of sea berries quite a bit. The bottom right, we have has caps. These are like blueberries, but larger, and I think taste even better. They're from Japan and Russia. And this plant flowers very early in the spring, and you get berries like you can get them the last week in May and early June. You can have these beautiful berries. And it's just an incredible bush that is easy to grow in your backyard. All of these bushes can grow in your backyard. We grow that one as well. And then the bottom right, left there is Nanking cherry. And I love this one because cherries are often eaten by birds and they're hard to reach if you have a cherry tree. So we grow these shrubs and they're delicious. You can make pies out of them and eat them fresh. And man, they are great. This is our elderberry tincture. And we also make an aronia tincture. That's another berry shrub that we grow. The elderberry is great for fighting off a cold and flu. And aronia is excellent for its anti-inflammatory properties. It's higher in antioxidants than blueberries. So we grow those berries and then we tincture them into alcohol and glycerin. You could just take a dropper full under the tongue each day. And we really think these help a lot. The last thing I'm going to say here for the last few minutes is we have been growing mushrooms for a long time. One of the reasons we are called a forest farm is previously we rented a cabin at the back of our old farm location, and we grew mushrooms on logs in the shade of the woods back there. And first, this is the wine cap mushroom I talked about earlier. With the wine cap bag, you can see the one on the right. That's the bag of sawdust, and that mycelium, the white threads, is grown through that sawdust. You could take one of those bags and put it in mulch in your garden, a perennial or annual garden, and you will get the wine cap mushrooms on the left there, and it will help your garden. But we grew shiitake mushrooms on logs in the woods. We had 1,000 shiitake logs in production a number of years ago, and we're setting up this system again this spring. We had a baby in 2021, and that we had a big transition of moving away from that cabin and buying our own home finally, in which we were able to do last year. And so we're living in our new house and building out another farm location just a couple minutes from the old one. So we'll be establishing another about 1,000 log shiitake yard and should have fresh shiitakes available next summer. They're really healthful. They have a lot of vitamin D and they dry really well. So we have sold dried shiitake mushrooms. You can throw them in soup and they rehydrate, and it's a really healthful, great thing to have in your pantry for long-term protein and vitamin D storage. For many years, we had chickens, and this is Pete. We were raising chickens in the woods, and it was a bit crazy, and we did it he raised chickens for 12 years. Like I said, we use this electro net fencing. I don't have time to go into that, but this is one of the systems people use to get chickens and cows through an agroforestry system. It's a movable fence, very easy to move around, all powered by the sun. And we grew the chickens for rainbow eggs, pastured eggs, just delicious. Um, just want to mention before we take questions that we are looking for land to steward. We have these 6 acres, which we're going to be putting in these intensive vegetable and berry production systems, but we're very interested in the potential of taking some of our broader open ag land and converting maybe 10 or 20 acres into a nut agroforestry system. Our friend Akiva Silver of Twisted Tree Farm south of Ithaca, um, he recently, I just saw him at a conference last week. He grows all kinds of nuts and trees, but the bitternut hickory is 80% oil. So when you open that nut up, it's very easy to crack and press. We could be producing excellent, delicious oil for cooking from those nuts. And once those systems are established, they just rain down productivity on us for generations and hundreds of years. So we're really, really interested in this sort of agroforestry. And we're, we want to reach out to OWLA and to the Finger Lakes Land Trust to see if there's someone who has larger acreage that they'd be interested in leasing to us on a long-term lease to grow hazelnuts, chestnuts, and hickory, and also potentially run animals through that system. So I wanted to share that with you because I really think, oh, this is our son Turi when he was a baby. I really believe in this highly diversified small farm system. I think this is a pattern we could be patchworking across our landscape in the Finger Lakes. And I think we're just sort of experimenting and pioneering these things here right now. I could see 40 some odd producers like us just in the Auburn and Skaneateles area producing everything that we need for a whole diet. And I really believe that that's possible. And I think it's the most resilient way forward for not only our human communities, but also for the watershed. And this is our contact information. We're very excited and want to talk to anyone who's interested in being nerdy about all of this stuff with us. And thank you so much for having me tonight.
Oh, thank you, Erin. Um, let's see. That was really. I'm still writing notes, so I was like trying to talk and write notes. I guess what we'll do is I know there were some questions that Toy was marking while you were talking that people had written in the chat. And Toy could go over that for you. And then if anybody else has questions, if you can raise your hand by, for me, there at the bottom it says react, and there's an option to raise hand. Sometimes for people, it's just a hand that you can click to raise. If you could all do that, that would, and then I'll try to take them in order of any questions. So, Toy, if you could go ahead and read the ones that you've marked or refer to those people.
Yeah, one we have here is what do you use as ground cover? This is from Kasha.
In a perennial system like the agroforestry systems, we there's a lot of options, but thyme is a really great ground cover, and strawberries are a great ground cover. There's a ground cover raspberry as well, and then there's wood sorrel and sweet woodruff. There's all kinds of things for shade that you can grow, but yeah, that's what I would say offhand. Um, those are the ground covers that come to mind right away.
And then Kasha had one more question regarding wood chips. Are there no issues with acidification?
That's a great question. So, coniferous trees, evergreen trees are more on the acidic side, the needles in particular. So when we get mulch for all of our grow beds, we only accept hardwood wood chip. We don't take bark mulch, and we don't take weeds, and we don't take um, any conifers, any evergreens. And those types of mulches are very safe for pathways around vegetables.
I'm seeing more come in the, and also if y'all want to, speak up and ask them yourselves, you can, but I'm happy to continue to read the chat. Can you put up another, Martha, I can actually send you the, I'll put the link in the chat for you for that.
Was it she wanted the veggie box?
The veggie box link, yeah.
Yeah. Am I still sharing?
No, not anymore.
Okay.
Dana asks, is it sometimes necessary to water your farm?
Oh, yes, always. we use we've used drip irrigation, but this time when we're setting up our new farm, we're going to I think they're called wobblers, but it's a system of overhead low sprinklers. Um, that it has a pressure regulator, and then every 20 feet or so, there's like a low wobbling sprinkler head. So we will be using that type of system and drip irrigation.
I think Anne has a question.
Well, I did. And hi, thanks so much. Carol's doing, I have a lot of notes here. But one question that came up was the forest garden and sunlight. I compost, I do a lot of, to me, organic. I'm very small here, but I am at the very edge of a forest, and the amount of sunlight does factor in as to what I'm able to grow. So I was just wondering, what do you find in partial sunlight that is doing well with
That's a
your?
really great question. So I didn't have time to go into it, but in forest garden design, what you're mimicking is an early succession forest. So we're picking semi-dwarf fruit trees and nut shrubs like hazelnuts. When you're thinking about keeping that system going in the very long term, so that's for a short term system like like your yard system. If you were going to put in a very long term, like 100-year forest garden, and you're growing taller canopy trees, then what happens is things that are under that over time, they die. Like a fruit tree's really only might live 40 or 50 years at best. So then by the time your hickories and your oaks and those trees are coming into their full glory as canopy trees, some of the understory is lessening. But we're talking about generations, not a 20-year cycle. But you can also just keep maintaining things short. So you can use techniques like coppicing and pollarding. So coppicing is cutting the tree at the roots at the ground level. Pollarding is cutting it kind of at like your eye level. And then you can keep fruiting off of shorter trees, and keep the system as like a young woodland instead of a mature forest.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Actually, oh, go ahead, Anne.
Well, I was also, I have apricot trees and pears, and I have lots of plums and apples, and, cherries have been bane. I can't do it. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering, my soil, something is lacking, and I want to go back to the basics and test the soil. Is it still like cooperative extension, or do you just go
Yeah.
to ag store and get a little test kit?
I think go to Cornell's soil health lab. That's where we're going to go this year for our soil testing, and I believe you can send everything in there, and they'll give you a good panel to work from. But I think cherry trees are a bit difficult to harvest off of, so I would
Okay.
just get some Nanking, or there's also.
I've
Oh,
had
cool.
two of them. I guess you need male, female or something. I had several.
Some are
I've had
self-fertile, but
them for
yeah.
about 25 years,
Oh,
and they finally passed away.
yes.
I have to
They
get
have
some
a
new ones.
lifespan.
Okay,
Yeah.
but thank you so
Yeah,
much.
sure.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question for you. kind of going to pull it back a little bit to how I think, when we think of agriculture, some of the things we're trying to get, other of the more traditional farms to do is, have holding ponds and things
Mhm.
like that. Do you, is it a product of where you're located or how you have set up the rows of plants, but do you have needs for that when we have these really high rain events? Do you have
Yeah.
soil loss and runoff problems?
So interestingly, I think because we have a lot of, we do not ever disturb the soil, and we have those mulch pathways. um, there's a lot of knitting together underneath, and we leave all the root masses intact in our annual production beds as well. So we're everything is composting under and staying there and connecting, and we haven't seen a lot of runoff at all in those grow beds specifically. But definitely we have to manage for water, and building small ponds and swales is something that we have done and will do more of at our new location. If we had larger acreage, the first thing to start with is like, oh my gosh, well, what is this geology in the soil, but what is the water movement? And looking at those patterns to capture and store the water higher up on the landscape, just like you're saying.
Mhm.
That has to be planned for first before installing trees and other things like that. Water management is extremely important, and you're right. We're getting these rain events that are just like unprecedented, and things are getting like inches more rain than ever we thought before. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
the unprecedented is becoming the common.
exactly, yes, yes.
Okay, well, thank you. Toy,
Yeah, I just
you
wanted
have
to add to Erin, I think something else we maybe could talk about is like the riparian work that we're going to
Mm,
be doing at the new farm because they are along one of the Dutch Hollow tributaries.
okay.
And so like there's a lot of work to put in beneficial trees and like
yeah, that's a great point, Toy. And I think farmers identifying those really wet areas in their fields, and I know this already occurs where we have some like grass or something going in on either side, and farmers are not planting. Um, but we did receive some NRCS funding to plant herbaceous species along our tributary small stream at our new property, um, so that we're slowing down water. I mean, one of the things we can do is once we've done any earthworks that we're going to do to craft the land for water, then we want to get cover on that as early and quickly as possible. So sedges, willows, elderberries, like all there are just hundreds of great native and non-native species that can do that. That's what can do that water holding work for us is those plants. The willows are absolutely amazing at holding water, and pulling water by the gallons per hour. I mean, it's just an incredible tree, and it's an incredible shrub that can be managed for so many purposes. So that's really important. And we want to do that watershed, that plant work, so that we have like a plant palette for our area. Like these plants work really well along all of our waterways. Yeah, go ahead. Is it Julie there?
Yep. Hi.
Hi.
And down. There we go. Um, I wanted to thank you. First of all, you just taught me a bunch of new things to think about. I wondered how much deer damage you get at your.
We are in the process of exclusively deer fencing out our market garden beds. There's really nothing to do other than that, other than having large dogs like Great Pyrenees, or a farm dog that's like lives outside and is always guarding the farm area. A deer fence. We're going to be putting in deer and rabbit fencing through NRCS funding, unless the government continues to freeze. We are in under contract for $27,000 to put in fencing and a massive windbreak hedgerow and the riparian species, and all of that is frozen currently. So I do want to urge you all as activists in the community to call your legislators, and just another point of that needs to be talked about.
That was my first question. I actually wanted to say hi to I think there's a couple of farmers here.
Oh, great.
I see Doug, or
Oh,
Doug's.
great. Hi, Doug.
And Taylor, are you a farmer? I don't know if why I'm thinking that.
Hi.
Hi, Doug.
Hi, Doug.
I was just wondering what you guys, anybody else here
Hi,
might.
how's everybody doing? I'm enjoying the conversation here.
Good. So
Doug sings in the chorus that I direct, and we're having lots of great conversations about soil health and biochar together, and I know he has a lot of great ideas how to go forward.
Yeah, I'm in the dark here. I'm ready to pick up some kids from youth group tonight over here in Skinny Atlas. So let's get the car warmed up.
Nice.
You're lurking in the
Yeah.
dark. See?
I think Doug was
Pete
literally
and
like,
Erin are gonna come over.
Yeah.
Okay,
Pete-
and I am looking through, since you guys are all looking through, and I do see from Assemblyman Lamont's office, we have Vickers. I was going to see if there were any
Yes,
questions or
Carol,
anything.
this is John Lamondes. It's coming up as
Oh, hi.
Taylor.
Oh, hi,
because
John.
the
Your
link
name is,
came to him.
hi,
That's
John.
fine. How are you? So you've got several people from my office on this call.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank
you. Thanks for participating.
Of course.
Yeah. We appreciate that. We need to get the message out that all of the funds. I know there are a number of farmers who have already laid out hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment and supplies. Knowing that for many decades they've received that NRCS funding in reimbursement while they're under contract. So, I mean, it's just one of a myriad of issues, but we need to let you know that we really care about what we're doing, and it's really important for our food security.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Do we have oh, I did I cut you off?
Nope.
Okay. And then Toy, do we have any other questions written down? Something kept popping up. Do you see them in there?
there's a couple still from the chat. Martha asks, any issues with Asian jumping worms?
We have worked very diligently to keep them from our farm locations. We do not import leaves in bags from anybody. We would love to collect leaves in the fall for making compost, but we're really nervous about importing those worms. And we look for them very actively as we work our beds and when we make compost and when we pot things up and move plants around. We don't really take plants from other sites so much, which is sad because plants should be shared and we would love to do that, but we are very diligent to try to keep them off our farms.
I saw one of those for the first time, 100%. I'm positive that what it was, they had spread some mulch from a landscaping place.
Yeah.
And I was reading, and all of a sudden I saw a worm, I picked it up and it flung itself so hard it broke in half.
It's kind of
And
unbelievable.
I was going, what? I said, aha, okay, that's what I mean, it was unmistakable behavior.
Yeah.
I'd read about it and seeing it happen. It was fascinating. Disturbing.
Disturbing.
Okay.
There
Were there any others?
There's another question. Where can one get organic mulch and compost?
Ha! I would like to know if you got that figured out. So there are two sources locally, Cayuga Compost, I think it was called. We sourced from two different places that said, they gave us their profiles. What we found is there's not a lot of soil life. It's kind of like biosolids that have just been baked a bunch. There are people in Vermont Compost Company is fantastic. It's very costly to get pallets shipped down here of that. It's something that someone should start. Someone should be composting industrially in our area. They should get a large scale composting going. It would be great if the city did it and made money. Okra, I don't know what Okra's compost is like. Often municipal compost has a lot of plastics in it because of not sorting well at source. That's what we found. So we're at a point where we are trying to just rent bucket loaders and get really nice manures in and get clean wood chip in and just make compost ourselves at our farm. Yeah. Oh, sure. I try to be. I'm as honest as the day. Toy will tell you. I'm like can't do sarcasm because I'm like really all the time.
I had a question about microplastics, which I know is the big hot
Yeah.
topic of, oh my gosh, it's everywhere. And I was
Yeah.
watching at Hoops Park, they're dredging the pond there. And I'm wondering where it's all going. And I remember there was a time when they were looking for someone to adopt the weed cuttings out of Owasco Lake. And
We
your farm.
actually those we I think OWLA arranged some
Mhm.
yeah, and we received some of that, and it's the most amazing stuff. We would love like many more yards of it. It has so much in it, and the circle around the pile that you guys dropped off is like teeming with life and grass growing 10 times as high. So that's like gold, that stuff from the lake, you know. And then that's another example of how waste is a resource. Um,
Is there,
and microplastics are a huge concern. I know that some biochar companies test for PFAS. I don't know what we do to test for PFAS in any materials, and also glyphosate is a huge concern for us. It's airborne. It seems to get everywhere. We really don't want it in our bodies. Um, Today I didn't get to talk about like the nutritional things, but I just want to say in closing, I think we're out of time, but I really would love everyone to look at the food as, I'm sorry, excuse me, food as medicine movement. And it's just really looking at the importance of getting very clean food into our bodies and very highly densely nutritious food into our bodies for optimum health. I think we're kind of at a crisis point with PFAS and all these contaminants in our food. So
Okay. Any other
There's
questions?
there's one more question from Martha. We have winterberry bushes that are not producing berries, but have berries when we purchase them. Any ideas and suggestions on more native plants that use less water and support our local insects, bees, moths, etc.?
Winterberry is a great plant. We're going to be planting, well, we're under contract to plant winterberry through the NRCS in our new hedgerow. I've never grown it before, so I can't say specifically if it's not self-fertile and if it needs a male. I don't know if it's dioecious and it needs male and female plants. I'm not familiar. I'm sorry why that's not working or if it's too shady. I think it's partially shade tolerant, so I'm not sure. But that's a beautiful shrub. And if you're looking for native plants, specifically Plantsman Nursery in Ithaca is great. And then also the woman who runs Dolce Lume Farm in Skaneateles, she grows native perennials and does meadowscaping, and she's fantastic. So if you're really interested in natives, personally, I love all plants, whether they are deemed native or not. If they're productive and we can manage them properly in the landscape, you know, a lot of the things that we call invasive are there because we've damaged the landscape and it's trying to heal itself. Is my contention. It's kind of like a scab, and if we keep picking off the scab, we're not going to heal. So we need to look at our plants through their function and yeah, as well as their beauty.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see other questions. I'll give it a second. While we're waiting, I do want to thank you, Erin, for your wonderful presentation and for taking the time to answer our questions. And I want to thank all the folks that are online here. I see lots of new names, lots of names that we see often. But I really wanted to thank everybody for coming, and I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope we see all of you at our farm someday.
Yeah, that would be true.
Thank you, Erin.
Thank you.
Thank
Erin.
you. I don't see any other questions popping up, so
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody for coming. And oh, is there a raised hand? Oh,
she's
No,
clapping.
just saying goodbye.
oh, okay. Thank you. I saw someone's hand up and